Why does it feel like your paycheck is shrinking, even though your job hasn't changed? Why are rent, groceries, and fuel suddenly swallowing your entire income? Whether you're in Singapore, Canada, Australia, the US, or the UK, it's the same story. Inflation is soaring, wages are stuck, and the cost of living seems to be spiraling out of control. And it's not just one or two countries facing these problems. This is happening everywhere. In today's video, we'll break down the global cost of living crisis, from why it's happening to how countries are trying to deal with it. We'll even compare how different nations are handling it, and most importantly ask, who's really managing this crisis the best? Stay tuned, because what we uncover might change the way you think about the world's economic future and your own. Part 1. What is the cost of living crisis? So what exactly is the cost of living crisis? It's not just about rising prices, it's about the real impact on people's daily lives. We're talking about the prices of things like food, housing, fuel, healthcare, and even education, all going up while wages either stay the same or don't grow fast enough to keep up. This is what makes the cost of living crisis so deeply frustrating. It's affecting everyone, no matter where they live. In Canada, families are facing a tough choice. Do they skip meals just to afford rent? It's becoming a reality for many. Just think about that for a second. Imagine having to choose between food and shelter. In the UK, it's a similar story. Fuel prices have skyrocketed, forcing families to decide between keeping their homes warm or putting food on the table. The emotional toll of that decision is something we all feel, even if we're not making the choice ourselves. Australia isn't much better. Young adults who are supposed to be out on their own, living independently, are now stuck. With rental prices out of control, many can't afford to move out of their parents' homes, which was once a rite of passage into adulthood. Even in Singapore, known for its stability and affluence, the pressure is mounting. Property prices are soaring, and import costs are driving up the prices of basic necessities. No matter how wealthy a country is, these issues touch everyone, from the highest earners to the everyday worker. So what's causing all of this? It's a perfect storm of factors: global supply chain disruptions, rising energy costs, climate-related events, and even the long-term effects of pandemics on the economy. And here's the truth. This crisis isn't just affecting the rich or poor. It's affecting everyone. Whether you're in a developed nation like the US or emerging economies, the pressure is undeniable. We're all feeling it. Part 2. The global factors driving this crisis. Now let's dive into what's really fueling this crisis. It's not just a problem for one country. This is a global crisis, and it's being driven by several interconnected factors that are shaking the foundations of economies everywhere. Supply chain disruptions. It all started with the COVID-19 pandemic. Suddenly, factories were shut down, workers were at home, and transport came to a halt. But it didn't stop there. Natural disasters and geopolitical tensions, like the ongoing conflicts in Ukraine, have further crippled global supply chains, making it harder and more expensive to get goods where they need to be. So what happens when goods become scarce? Prices go up. Take Singapore as an example. While it's known for its logistical efficiency, even it's not immune to these disruptions. Whether it's electronics, food imports, or everyday essentials, supply chain issues are causing prices to spike. Rising energy costs. Then there's the issue of energy. When Russia invaded Ukraine, it sent global fuel prices soaring. In the US, Europe, Australia, and even in Canada, people are now paying more to heat their homes, fill up their cars, and even get food delivered to their doorsteps. And it doesn't stop with gas. Electricity bills, heating costs, and even the price of getting groceries from one place to another have jumped, and we all feel it. In places like Australia, where summers are brutally hot and winters freezing, energy bills are now among the top household expenses, leaving many families struggling to balance their budgets. Inflation. As if that wasn't enough, let's talk about inflation. Central banks around the world, from the US Federal Reserve to the Bank of England, have been raising interest rates to combat inflation. But in many places, it just isn't enough. Inflation is eating away at the value of your money, making everyday items, groceries, gas, utilities, more expensive. In Singapore, even though the government tries to keep inflation in check, rising costs in global markets are still taking a toll. In India, the situation is no different. Inflation is affecting food prices, and the working class is feeling the pinch. Wages aren't growing fast enough to keep up, and people are finding it harder to make ends meet. Corporate greed. Now, here's where things get tricky. While ordinary people are struggling, corporations are reporting record profits. Big companies, especially in sectors like energy, food, and technology, have been quick to raise prices. Why? Because they know they can. It's no secret that many businesses are taking advantage of the crisis to boost their bottom line. In the US and UK, corporate profits are through the roof. Meanwhile, wages, they're not keeping pace with the cost of living. Employees are working harder, but they aren't getting the compensation they deserve. The result? A growing wealth gap that's leaving many people behind. Tariffs and trade barriers. On top of all this, tariffs and trade barriers have worsened the situation. As countries like the EU and China implement trade policies to protect their industries, tariffs are driving up the cost of imported goods. For example, electronics from China, clothing from Vietnam, and cars from Europe are all subject to higher tariffs. This results in higher prices for consumers across the board. In Australia, tariffs on imports from neighboring regions have caused certain products to become even more expensive, from food to industrial supplies. In the UK post-Brexit, new tariffs on European goods have led to more expensive imports, which trickles down to households. Even Singapore, a global trade hub, isn't immune. While it might be one of the wealthiest nations in the world, the rising cost of imports due to global tariffs is affecting consumer price narrative. Part 3. How different countries are responding to the crisis. Now that we've explored what's causing the crisis, the next question is, how are different countries responding? Because while the problem is global, the solutions are not. Let's start with Singapore. Often praised for its efficiency and planning, Singapore has been quick on its feet. The government introduced support packages to help families hit hardest. These included direct cash assistance and rebates to offset rising taxes and energy bills. For many, that brought some short-term relief. But even in this well-managed city-state, the pressure remains. Property prices are soaring, and the cost of essentials like groceries and transport continues to creep upward. For everyday Singaporeans, it still feels like they're running just to stay in place. In the United States, the early days of the pandemic saw bold action. Stimulus checks were sent out to millions. That gave a temporary boost. But inflation followed fast, and wages didn't keep up. Interest rates were hiked to slow things down, yet that only made mortgages more expensive. For many Americans, buying a home or even renting in a city is becoming impossible. Meanwhile, debates about raising the minimum wage continue to drag on, stuck in political deadlock. Across the Atlantic in the UK, things are just as tense. Energy prices have surged, pushing some families to choose between heating and eating. In response, the government introduced energy price caps. That helped a little, but it wasn't enough. Strikes have erupted across sectors, from transport workers to nurses, as people fight for wages that actually match inflation. Add to that the lingering aftershocks of Brexit and a healthcare system under strain, and it's clear that many in the UK are growing restless. Meanwhile, in Australia, the rental market has turned brutal. In cities like Sydney and Melbourne, young people are stuck living with their parents well into adulthood, not because they want to, but because rent is out of control. Some states have talked about rent freezes, but nationwide action remains limited. While the government has offered subsidies to ease the burden, many feel they're just treading water. And then there's Canada, where the central bank responded to inflation by raising interest rates, a move that curbed spending but made home ownership even more out of reach. Cities like Vancouver and Toronto have seen housing prices spiral far beyond the reach of the average family. In some provinces, local governments have stepped up, offering child benefit programs or rental support. But with food prices and fuel costs still climbing, Many Canadians feel their paychecks are disappearing before the month even begins. So who's handling it best? If we look at it from a policy perspective, Singapore stands out. Its top-down, fast response approach, combined with heavy public sector control over housing and utilities, has made it more resilient. Canada and Australia, though facing tough housing markets, have shown flexibility, adjusting policies at local levels to provide targeted relief. The US and UK, however, are struggling under the weight of political division, delayed action, and growing inequality. What this shows is that how quickly and how seriously a government reacts can make all the difference. The countries that are faring better aren't perfect, but they're the ones that treated this like a crisis from day one, rather than waiting for it to explode. Part 4, What You Can Do, Surviving the Cost of Living Crisis. So now that we know what's happening and how governments are reacting, the big question is, what can you do about it? Because let's face it, most of us don't have the power to change interest rates or lower fuel tariffs. But that doesn't mean we're helpless. People everywhere, from Singapore to the UK, from the US to Australia and Canada, are finding ways to adapt, survive, and push back, even if it's just one small step at a time. Take budgeting, for example. In normal times, maybe you didn't pay close attention to every dollar, pound, or peso. But now, more than ever, tracking where your money goes can mean the difference between getting through the month or falling behind. People are cutting back on non-essentials, switching to cheaper food brands, and using budget apps that help them stay on top of their spending. Then there's knowledge. A lot of governments actually do offer support. The problem is, many people just don't know it exists. In Singapore, rebates and GST vouchers can offset basic expenses if you're eligible. In the UK and Canada, rent relief and childcare support exist in many provinces. In the US, some states offer food or utility assistance. But if you don't search, ask, or apply, you miss out. Information really is power here. And let's talk about income. For some, the crisis has sparked a shift towards side hustles and remote work, whether it's freelancing online, offering services locally, or even learning new skills that boost your employability. A lot of people are realizing they can't rely on just one paycheck anymore. That's not a criticism, that's survival. At the same time, we're also seeing more people become vocal, joining unions, demanding fair wages, and participating in policy conversations. Because this crisis didn't just happen. Some of it is about greed. Some of it is about poor planning. And unless people speak up, nothing changes. You might feel like you're in this alone, but you're not. From a father in Melbourne skipping meals so his kids can eat, to a mother in Toronto working 2 jobs just to afford daycare, to a young adult in Singapore still living with parents because rent is impossible. These stories are playing out in every corner of the world. Different countries, same struggle. And while you might not be able to change the economy overnight, small decisions, awareness, and community support can be powerful tools. You're not powerless. You're part of a global wave of people who are who's really paying the price. So after everything we've explored, rising prices, government responses, and the steps ordinary people are taking to cope, one thing is clear. This isn't just a financial crisis. It's a human one. Whether you're in Singapore, Australia, the UK, Canada, or the US, chances are you've already felt it. The stress, the sacrifice, the sense that no matter how hard you work, it's just not enough. And while politicians debate and corporations profit, it's everyday people like you who are paying the real price. But knowledge is power. The more you understand what's happening, the better equipped you are to protect your future, support your family, and speak out for real change. Now we want to hear from you. How are you dealing with the rising cost of living? What's it like in your country right now? Drop your experience in the comments, because your story might help someone else feel less alone. And if this video gave you new insight or made you feel seen, then please like, share, and subscribe. We cover global issues that connect us all, no matter where we live, because the more we understand each other's challenges, the stronger we all become. Thanks for watching. Stay strong, stay informed, and stay